want to catch you at the end of the meeting just with one other thing. Okay, call to order the regular meeting on Monday, April 11th. I ask that all who have not signed in, please do so. Please turn off please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices, and please conduct any private conversations in the hallway or outside. Emergency exits can be found to your right and to your left. At this time, if you'd please join us in a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wish to declare Councilman Dave Condon necessarily absent this evening, and also our town engineers have notified me they are unable to attend this evening's meeting. First order of business, approval of minutes of the March 28th Town Board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And just Karen, as a note, she did a nice job in your absence.
Thank you.
And at this time, we'll ask our clerk to please introduce the abstract.
Manifest 7 for 2022 in the amount of $83,532.15 has been reviewed by the Victor Town Board with the following accounts charged: general townwide, general outside village, highway townwide, the lighting districts of Fishers, Brookwood Meadows, High Point, Cobblestone, Coil Ridge, Rolling Meadows, Stone Lane, the Legacy at the Fairways, and Trust and Agency.
Susie, can you get that up? Thank you. Payment number 1, thank you, Karen, as well. Payment to American Rock Salt. Next is Harris Beach. American Rock Salt, where are we percentage-wise? Do we still have more salt we have to take in and pay for? We're good? Okay, thank you. Next is payment to Harris Beach. There are chargebacks as well on there for $13,759.20. Next is payment to Integrated Systems, April hosting charges, and then payment to Springbrook Software for KVS services. Total of the above-mentioned expenditures is $47,676.74. Total town expenditures minus the previous mentioned expenditures equals $35,855.41. Board members, any questions on this evening abstract as introduced?
Nope.
Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the payments thereof.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving to privilege of the floor, Mr. Jeff Smith, Stonebrook Subdivision. And Jeff, board members do have this map.
'cause I have-
They should have it all.
I had a little, okay, well, I brought copies. If anybody needs copies, I do have extras. I'm Jeff Smith with Woodstone Custom Homes, and with me tonight are Tim Smith with Woodstone and Lucas Bushin from Marathon Engineering for technical support if you have questions here and there. Essentially, we thank you for having given us this time to present to you. Before we're in the process now of deciding what to do with the open space in our subdivision, Stonebrook, off East Victor Road. And we've gone to the planning board and sketch plan stage, and our next process, of course, will be preliminary plan. And before we get there, we want to know how to divvy up the open space. Our initial thoughts, I think, as you remember, because we've looked at a plan very similar to this in the zoning process, original thoughts were that we wanted to provide it to the town of Victor and town of Farmington as dedication of open space. And I think at that time, principally, we were thinking that the trail is readily accessible to the Auburn Hill Trail, and it is also adjacent to other town property along Suncrest. And finally, it contains Mud Creek, which is a very interesting creek. I've long admired it driving down Boughton Hill Road and thought the Stone Line Creek was one of the very attractive features of the area. And it runs through this property. A good portion of it is stone lined, and then towards the northern portion of it, it becomes more like a normal creek, like Arundequoit Creek, I think. But so before we get any farther with our planning process, we do have to understand whether the town would consider taking ownership of the property. I guess when we first started this, we thought that would be obvious, but as I've learned along the way, not everyone necessarily supports that. You may feel that you have enough public lands and don't need any more recreational space. Initially, we thought it would be a great town asset. So that if tonight, I'm not sure whether we could take a straw poll tonight or at least in soon, we would like to have some indication of the town's interest in the property. If the town does not have any interest in the property, our next step will be to try to get a land trust. I've spoken to Genesee Finger Lakes, and they are not interested. Spoke to Genesee Land Trust, and they said they might consider it if the town did not want it, although they also said that it typically comes with a cash donation along with it. And my response to that was, I have plenty of other spots to spend money on this development, and that's not likely going to happen. So Genesee Land Trust may be out as well. In which case, our alternative, as other developers have done with other open spaces, to carve it up among a number of lots. We would probably only take a couple, 2, 3, and make large parcels. And looking at it probably would mean also on the Farmington side, rather than having people having parcels in 2 different towns, we would approach Farmington alone and see if they wanted that piece that's in Farmington, and then they may make it part of the Martensia Park. If we can, I guess in fairly quick presentation, I think you know the question. If the town's not interested, it'd be good to know that now. And we just are looking for some direction, because it will definitely tell us how we're going to present our preliminary plan to the planning board. So we're here for questions if there are any. The one thing I do want to note, and the only thing different substantively than you saw at the early stages during the zoning presentation, and I can't point it out, but if you see the big blue spot there, the ponds, we moved the stormwater detention facility to the east of the property, still on town lands, but it worked better for the gravity flow and the amount of absorption that was required. So we had it initially in that center section. There's about 6 acres there, but once all the topography was delineated, it became more logical to put it at the east side of the subdivision. We probably will, as we did with Bluemont, because there will be some outflow onto another town, that we will work with Farmington with MS4 and all those requirements that are necessary. But it should work well there. There'll be plenty of access to it for maintenance, but that's the only difference in the plan that you're seeing there. So,
The board members, you may recall walking this sometime last year, I think it was. And then in addition, my understanding, I think Victor Hiking Trails also walked it. I may be wrong. I'm getting a head shake over there. Okay. I know my own conversations with Brian and my own, Brian Emelson, Director of Parks and Rec for the town, and my own thoughts are, yes, I mean, certainly look at this as an opportunity with the town of Farmington to do something, but I also, I'm looking what we'd have, it's great possibly for trails and other things, though I know we have significant mileage of trails today here within the town. I'm not looking at this as a piece of property where I could see us putting a road and accessing for fields and things like that other use. That's my concern.
And we
Jeff.
assumed that as well. I thought it would be just a passive preserve, essentially. I saw Pittsford made a lot of, and maybe that's why I thought of it. Pittsford made a lot of news about a nature preserve that they had acquired from an estate. And it just essentially were walking trails. And so what you see is what you get largely. And when we did take some of the board members and planning board members, conservation board members, and Dave, it's very interesting property. I don't think it would be developed any further, and that would not be, I mean, it's certainly Parks and Rec, if they owned it, they could, but I doubt if it would. The interesting thing about it is you could have signage right on the Auburn Trail that says, take a further walk, and it produces a fair amount of mileage by the time you take the Mud Creek area and then come up to what has not been developed on Sunrise Crest. There are two easement areas. There are actually open town areas that haven't been utilized. But certainly, I would think some of the trail people may be interested in developing walking paths. If nothing else, the ones that exist now are basically just, once you walk there a lot, they become a path. They're not improved paths. But it is something that ultimately the town board would need to give us a signal. My personal preference, and again, largely probably because I always thought Mud Creek was an interesting creek. I mean, it just would be nice to have better access to it for the public. But on the other hand, the town has to think of other things. I understand that.
You mentioned the stormwater pond would be moved, and I know it's hard to certainly visualize, but would there be easements conveyed to the
Yes.
town?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the one thing that came about it when we did the sketch plan presentation for the development is that Keith Maynard, I think one of his responses was that one way or the other, they wouldn't want the town to own the stormwater management facility, in which case our interpretation was that would have to be on private lands with easement access. Quite honestly, that's different in my head because many other towns, everybody handles it differently, quite honestly. In Brighton, we carved out a parcel that actually was dedicated and deeded to their storm district, not to the town in general. And Pittsford, I think, just puts them within their district properties. I mean, they're probably all owned by the town, but maintained by the district. But anyway, Keith did mention that they would not want that to be part of town ownership. So we'll verify that with them at the preliminary planning process. But so even if we were to dedicate the balance of the land to the town of Victor and to the town of Farmington, there'd probably be a carve out around the pond. And we would certainly recognize, in terms of access easements and all that.
Your point about a nature preserve is certainly, has merit to think about. I will tell you, in my time here, I think the first time I've had the consideration for that. So, so uncharted waters, I will say for myself here. But
yes, it's not intended to be an active recreational site. The property is not suited for that, and it was not our intention to imply that it would be good. But as I say, and maybe the Genesee Land Trust may have interest. Their only response was that if it became available, they would give it more study. But that they'd expect money, and then I said, well, forget it. No, I didn't say exactly that, but I just said it'd be unlikely that we would provide cash donation along with it.
board members,
So,
thoughts?
And Brian, we talked about this at some time. Number one, as what's in the town of Farmington, we really have no say one way or another. And there's, the access to it is pretty much in a floodplain, isn't it? What's in Farmington is a floodplain. So it floods every year, according to what town of Farmington says. And so we don't really have a say in what happens to that stretch that's along the creek anyways. It's Farmington, so that would depend on what, is there 6 acres or 7 acres that go along there?
Well, 15 acres are in Farmington. I don't know
there's-
how many are in the floodplain, because there's a high portion that's up near the.
Farmington's kind of said, unless it's changed, that they really don't have an interest, or they would have come across the creek for their part as it exists.
Right.
And anything we would have to consider would be just the part that's in the town of Victor, and I think Brian said it would be a cost that we did not, at the time, want to take on. Not putting words in anybody's mouth.
At the time we walked it, and I don't actually remember the date, largely it was dry. There were pockets that were, and you could definitely see that there are floodplain areas, because when the creek gets going, it goes back into sections. The trolley ran across the creek, and it can be walked to. And there's quite a bit of area, I think, that's well out of any flood areas. But I think you're right, and one of the points clearly is that the creek, to some extent, divides the Farmington piece from Martinsia Park. It would be accessible through the Auburn Trail once they cross the creek, and then it gets, so I don't know for sure whether Farmington would be interested in it, but I would think they would. I mean, there's that trail that's right from the Auburn Trail that's on their property.
Jeff, and I assume you have not had a conversation with Tom?
No,
Okay.
because if Victor didn't have any interest in it, there was really no reason to go to Farmington for it.
Thank you.
My intent, I thought it would be appropriate to keep it as a bulk parcel, because it is, that's the interesting part. There's parts in Victor that are in a high land looking down on Mud Creek. There's parts in Farmington that are in the valley. And I think if any land trust were interested, it would be to look at the entire piece of land, which is quite substantial. It's about 65 acres.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments, board members? Brian, any, not to put you on the spot, but I put you on the spot, so.
No, I was just going to invite you, Brian. I thought if you had any technical difficulties.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian Emelson, Director of Parks and Recreation. My only recommendations come from what's born out of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which, as you recall, was done in 2019. And this parcel was not identified by our residents as a priority parcel for acquisition. There were other parcels identified, which we've gone forward with on Brace Road and acquired, that were on either side of Paparone Park. The challenge for me is just that we have, I mean, in our inventory, 450 acres of parkland just within the town and village of Victor, as well as another 330 acres in Boughton Park. So you've got 4 times the amount of parkland per capita for a community of your size, which is awesome. Something you don't have to go out, in many communities that are inner ring suburbs have to go out and they have to acquire land to build out their park systems. But so you have that already existing in your inventory. The challenge is resources to manage and maintain it. You know, it would take, I mean, already exists an already taxed department with mowing and maintaining parkland, and having such a substantial amount of passive land located at Lehigh Crossing Park or Mary Frances Bluebird Haven, or a large portion of Village on the Park. You've got a lot of passive parkland already in your inventory. What our residents told us in our 2019 plan is that their top priority is to see our community develop Paparone Park for active uses, which is located within a half mile of this parcel. So my recommendations are born out of those conversations and what's documented in your master plan. I think you can access it from a public perspective for trails and for passive use through the instruments included in the conservation easement language, or a nature conservancy, someone else acquires it, and then you have an agreement with them to develop or utilize it for passive uses, wildlife viewing opportunities, trails, and not actually take dedication of it as a town. So taking dedication of it is different, and it has both recreational implications, but also financial implications for the town that the board should consider.
Brian, so when we look at that option of a nature preserve, so if we were to take ownership of the land from the town took ownership of the land and just turned it into a nature preserve, I guess I don't know a whole lot about those. Do they become, I guess what's the disadvantage to that? Are they not utilized, or they're utilized only within the neighborhood that's immediately adjacent to that?
You wouldn't actually, the way my experience is in New York State is you wouldn't actually take ownership. The developer or the applicant here would work with another party, such as the Genesee Land Trust, to see if they want to take it on in their inventory. We have a couple nature conservancy parcels within the town that are located in proximity to the Auburn Trail. If you're down in the Railroad Mills area, there's a nature conservancy parcel there. There's also a nature conservancy parcel of land up off of Valentine Road that Victor Hiking Trails is currently working with the developer, as well as the adjoining property owners and the Nature Conservancy, to develop trails in there. So it wouldn't be actually a nature preserve. When it becomes parkland in New York State, through the planning process that Jeff's going through, in this town, you have the options of conservation easement, dedicated parkland, or some other activity, commonly a golf course, for that to achieve that 50%. He can achieve his 50% also through the a nature preserve or conservancy. Bluebird Haven is often titled as a nature conservancy or a nature park, but it's an actual dedicated park. So we don't, if you do choose to take dedication of this land, you would want to go through the process of vetting it as a master plan. You should come up with a sense of what the community wants to see done and developed there, not just automatically think it's going to be passive. Certainly the terrain, the wildlife viewing opportunities, any types of constraints that would occur there within the floodplain or the floodway might put you in a position to only have it be passive. But quite frankly, you need to go out and do outreach to the community and determine what the community wants to see there. Just like you did with Paparone Park and Dryer Road Park and Victor Municipal Park. So it's just, the hesitation is just because of the existing parkland that we already own and the resources that we currently have. Understand that it would take additional resources just with what we have now. It's going to gradually as our system develops. I can only speak on my time here for the past couple decades.
All right, thanks.
Sure. Any other questions for me?
Thank you. Points well taken. I am going to ask our town attorney if he has any, is he familiar with any of nature preserves, things of that appropriate to this conversation?
Well, I think they've nailed it on the head. I mean, typically these nature preserves are created through a third party, just like Genesee Valley Trust, Nature Conservancy, Audubon Society. Those are the typical methods by which these are preserved. And sometimes they're provided as recreation for or use by public, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're forever wild and restricted. So there's nothing really I could add to what's been already discussed on that point.
Okay, thank you. So, board members, I haven't heard much support for or against, so did you want to say something?
I'm sorry, I have one more comment. So, Mr. Smith, when I went out with the Victor Hiking Trails and we walked that area, I believe you were with us that evening. my initial impression when we walked down the Auburn Trail and then entered the trailhead there, the flooding had obviously been there within a couple of weeks, you could tell, but obviously it wasn't there at that time. I really enjoyed that walk that started from the Auburn Trail that proceeded down to where the Victor and Farmington town line meets. But, and that also kind of, opened my eyes to the fact that the utilization from the trail side of it really is on the Farmington side. So my concern, at least from the town board here in Victor, is that taking dedication of the parkland that is within the town of Victor, to me, and I could be wrong, but it more so allocates it to local community use rather attracting people on a larger scale. And I say that because I live miles down the Auburn Trail, but I find my way down the Auburn Trail. If I had an opportunity to be within the town of Victor and see that, take this trail, that would be something I would probably take advantage of, but I'm not going to drive over and park on Sunbury Crest to enjoy that portion on the north end of the property. So when I walked it, that's kind of the one thing I noted, that the portion that I most enjoyed was the part that was in the town of Farmington. So I think that supervisor, that gives a little bit of feedback maybe against it.
So Jeff, someday I may be criticized for missing out on an opportunity, but I'm going to respectfully decline this opportunity.
That's fair enough. I have no problem with that. And I think that our next step will be, we'll work, we haven't tried Nature Conservancy, but we will go back to Genesee Land Trust and ask them if they have interest. And if they do, it has to be interest in the short run rather than the long run, because obviously we have to understand that. But I thought it was an opportunity. But admittedly, as I hear both sides, I realize it goes deeper than that, and and the town has to have a reason for it. And passive recreation, I think at this point, I guess there's not a big reason for it, so.
Would you do me a favor? I know you have my contact information as you proceed in having dialogue with these groups, if you keep me abreast of that.
Yeah, I can. I can copy you in when I approach them, because I do have a contact at Genesee Trust already and Genesee Land Trust. But I thank you for your time, certainly, and I appreciate the direction.
Welcome, thank you. Next on the privilege of the floor is Mr. David Wright, Victor Hiking Trails, special announcement, special date coming up.
Well, thank you for this, yeah. Thank you for this opportunity to be here before you. I appreciate it. Just for a little background, I'll give you a little 5-minute history of Victor Hiking Trails, and that is that back in 1991, a few people with some vision saw that Crescent Trails was doing some great things over in Perrington, and we thought, Victor's being developed very quickly. This was back in the 90s, and maybe we should take a look at trails in Victor. At that time, I think there was only a couple of parks in the town, and they did not have a Parks and Recreation department. They had a summer recreation program. And so we got together and decided that trails should be good in Victor. Got a lot of opportunities with the rolling hills and the creeks. And 2 years later, we had a trail. Monkey Run was our first trail off of County Road 9. We worked diligently with RG&E to get the Auburn Trail, and then the town already owns most of the Seneca Trail, or the Lehigh Valley Trail. So that was a good start for us. Then we started working with private landowners to get the Seneca Trail, and we worked very closely with the planning department and planning board to make sure that when there were new developments like this one that's being proposed tonight, that we do have an opportunity for suggesting some trails in those developments. So as a result of our efforts and the town's effort through parks and trails in the park, and as well as Ganondagan State Historic Site, we're up to about 65 miles of trails open to the public. And they're not done yet. We think there's still opportunities, especially in the western portion of the town and the southwestern portion of the town that's not as heavily developed as some of the other areas for future trails. So we'll be working with the planning board and with Parks and Recreation to see how we can satisfy that area of the town as well. We are a 501c3 corporation. We do have the benefit of tax exempt from New York State, so when we buy some lumber or things that we need for bridges and boardwalks, that we're able to get that without having to pay the extra 7.5% or 8% tax. So as a result of all this effort, now it's been 30 years, and we thought maybe it's time to celebrate our accomplishments. So on Saturday, June 4th, which just happens to be National Trails Day, we're going to have a big celebration in the village, in the parking lot where the library is. And we're hoping to get a lot of people to come out and celebrate with us. To encourage them, we've invited all of the trail groups such as ours around the area. Crescent Trail has a great group. Ontario Pathways down in Canandaigua has a great group. So we're contacting all of them, as well as any of the local businesses that want to come out and have a display, whether it be a sports club organization or sports store such as LL Bean or Dick's or North Face. We're inviting all of them to come and have a table and maybe sell some boots or bikes. All of the bike stores in the area, we've invited them. We're going to have food trucks. Local food trucks will be in the parking lot to take care of the people that are hungry. And we will have live entertainment. A couple of local bands are going to be playing with the borrowing the stand from Parks and Rec, the platform. So we'll have that. We are renting a large tent just in case it's too hot, too sunny in June. And we also are inviting the 3 of the local breweries in Victor. So we have Twin Elders, Stumbling Monkey, and No BS Brewery, all located right here in the village. And hopefully they'll come out and sell some refreshments. And we also like to invite the town with any of their departments, whether it's Parks and Recreation, Highway, any department that would like to come out and have a table there and just let the general public know what's going on, and we'd like to give you that opportunity as well. So this was my formal invitation to invite the town to participate. We went through some hoops to get the village approvals. We have our New York State liquor license, and we think we're on a good track. And hopefully we'll get a lot of people coming into the village and celebrating with us. So if anyone has any questions.
Well, actually, Dave, jumping ahead just a bit, or actually, last week I actually I spoke at the Farmington Victor Lions Club.
Okay.
And I know they have, through Councilman Kohovic, his wife is the president of the Lions Club, so she's been asking Councilman Kohovic what's going on with Hang Around Victor Day, because the merger of the Victor Chamber with the Canandaigua Chamber has now created the Ontario County Chamber. So Mayor Haddon met last week with the director of the new Ontario County Chamber, Ethan Fogg. And my understanding that there'll be a press release coming out soon, I don't know how soon, from Ethan Fogg, Mayor Haddon, and then Kathy Rayburn of the Local Development Corporation, stating that Hang Around Victor Day will not take place this September. So your event on the 4th,
Yep, June 4th.
on June 4th. I think the village government is looking to do something maybe in August, I may be, like in July or August. Similar scenario as well. Will probably, hopefully, embraced by the public that you're looking for, but also for those maybe not-for-profit groups and others that looking for an opportunity to be visible out there in the community as well. So we do thank you for the invitation. Certainly thank you for 65 miles of walking trails. A few of them I've been on myself, crossed
Very
paths
good.
with
Very
yourself
good.
as well a few times. But board members, any comments for Dave?
I think it's a wonderful thing, Mr. Wright. I might recommend, and I certainly can't speak for them, but if you haven't already, I would probably send along an invitation to the 2 fire departments in the town.
Okay.
They oftentimes, I know, are interested in participating in events, and I know we recently did one up at Parks and Rec that, kind of related to the outdoor activities, and we like to show off some of the stuff, or the fire department shows off some of the stuff that they have that relates to UTVs, trail rescue, ropes rescue, and the things that we would utilize to help people that might have been injured.
That would be excellent.
Injured on
That
the
would be
trail,
great,
so
yeah.
I'm sure if you send that along to those fire departments, they more than likely will be very
But
interested.
we already, because the Victor Fire Department is right here in the village, we did contact them first to see if they wanted to do chicken barbecue or pulled pork or anything like that. And right now, they're saying that they've got a lot going on, and they really don't think they can participate. So we are going to invite Fisher's Fire Department to come down and do whatever they like to do.
Can you cook some chicken?
The unique thing that we're doing is we don't charge for nonprofits or government. If a store comes down and they want to sell something, then we charge them $20. So we're not out to make a lot of money. We just want to get everybody to come down and check us out.
Amazing, though, 30 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dave, again, thank you to you yourself and all the members of the Victor Hiking Trails, your vision in 1991, and look where you are in year 2022.
Right. I would also like to say that during the ceremony, we are going to have an opportunity to honor and thank those people that started at the very beginning, that created the Victor Hiking Trails, and worked the first few years to get things started. And so actually, a gentleman who is our trail master, Scott Reinhardt, was hoping to be here tonight and explain that, because this is all his baby, is having this Victor Hiking Trails Hall of Fame to honor the people that really put us all together. And we also have a category for Friends of Victor Hiking Trails. And at the time, Ken Wilson was our supervisor, and we're going to make sure that he gets honored through his son. So that's just some of the things that we'll do when the bands are switching.
Dave, maybe you could talk to Scott and maybe provide us with that list of individuals that you want to honor, recognize, and maybe certainly, I think the town board would be receptive to some kind of recognition of them through a proclamation.
Sure.
So,
Yep. Okay,
very good.
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to public comments and concerns. Opportunity for members of the public to address the town board. And Susie, I ask if you have anyone with you virtually. No comments. No comments from the public. Okay. Reports of town officials. We have our Parks and Recreation report. And again, I went through in my supervisor's report, there's a traffic report from Ontario County. Again, a reduction in hours, but I do know that we're getting very close with being 100% fully staffed at the Sheriff's Department, between the 6 or 7 individuals in the academy, as well as a number of transfers coming back or into our Sheriff's Department. So I anticipate that those hours will go up. In addition, I mentioned a number of things related to the chamber, Hang Around Victor Day. The Lions Club also brought up Honor Flight, and I will talk about that here in a bit. In addition, I do want to mention Recently, Keith Maynard had shared with us the efforts of our highway department, and Keith as well regarding catch basin inspections, cleaning, and repair. So in 2020, 192 catch basins were inspected, 30 were cleaned, and 20 repaired. In 2021, 195 catch basins were inspected, 28 cleaned, and 70 were repaired. This is a ongoing project, and certainly, I know Keith appreciates it, town board does as well. I should share this information with a former town board member, Mr. Dave Tantillo.
Absolutely.
He would-
Absolutely.
He would be ecstatic, Mark. So, job well done by all of you. This time, we'll turn it over to our clerk.
Oh, okay. They were,
It's a
no.
team.
No, I know. I had something else too. No. We had sent in speed studies, so we received feedback and for Aldridge Road between High Street and County Road 9, and they don't determine that a reduction in speed is warranted. Also, the review of Phillips Road between Route 251 and County Road 42. They don't determine that a reduction is warranted at this time. And also Willowbrook Road between High Street and Raleigh Road. They don't see a reduction of speed warranted at this time. I don't know why we send those in.
Have we ever seen New York State DOT
No.
agree
Proof?
to
Nothing.
lowering the speed limit?
No, but I have to admit, they have now really improved their customer service tenfold. They are now 2 paragraphs long, and they're turning you down.
I have something else I would like to say.
Not resigning, are you?
I go back to Margot. No. To the town supervisor and board members, this is for the record. I would like to take this opportunity to clarify my actions from the last board meeting on March 28th, in which a resident expressed concerns that I did not respond to her emails in a timely manner. My deputy did try to explain that I did respond, but could not get that point out there. I did in fact respond to Ms. Lombard on March 14th, in which she later said she missed my response, and she did apologize. I pride myself on communication, and the girls in my office also do a wonderful job with that. She was at the meeting tonight, and she apologized to me out in the hallway. I just want to clarify, because I'm sitting watching the meeting, Zoom, and I see this woman just saying all this stuff about me, and I'm not there to defend myself. And I wanted to clarify that, so thank you.
So I do want to end regarding to Ms. Lombard, last meeting, so I did have a follow-up meeting last week with Kevin Overton, Al Benedict, and Kim Kinsella regarding sidewalks. Staff is putting together some information for Kevin to review. Kevin's going to review current codes, and they're also looking at a few other towns, but more to follow. There'll be something to this board probably in the next couple of months. In addition, we'll get an opportunity, and Kevin and I both agreed we thought it would best that we get Ms. Lombard in and maybe her neighbor and have a conversation with them as well as we get closer. So that's where we are.
I have something also, Jack. You volunteered me, I can't remember which word I was going to use, but for the project in the Veterans Memorial Park outside the double doors here. Hello. That's okay, it happened to me once too. Anyway, for the project, I was with the American Legion last week in a meeting, and I just want to clarify, the Memorial Day Parade. They are under the impression that you and Kathy Rayburn are going to take care of all the stuff for the Memorial Day Parade based on your meeting with them. Okay, and I guess I was not aware of that, but I want to make sure that you are. Because it did sound a little confusing about who was doing what before you know it's going to be here. So I just want to make sure that you're understanding that their impression is that you and Kathy are basically running the whole show. That's what I got out of the American Legion meeting for the other night. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because I want to make sure that maybe you have agreed to do that, but I didn't think you did, so.
We did have a meeting with them, and I know, John, I think John Turner was with us. Bob Kelly represented the village. Maybe John Turner wasn't with us. I think Kathy's been in touch with law enforcement already. There's a number of parades around the county that day, so I think the sheriff's department can only provide us with 2 units, so we don't know. I haven't, and that email came late in the day, so I don't know if we'll probably work with maybe the state police as well, or ask, I know our fire departments are part of that parade, but maybe they could also, because we need traffic blocked off here, and then until, it'll be 2 years ago, it was pre-pandemic parade route from the school down. And I don't have my notes in front of me, how the sequence of order that they are requesting, and they'll all be in vehicles. I did ask them, they said, well, geez, what about our poles? You know, they usually have a American Legion. I said, listen, you make a financial contribution to post-9/31 baseball players for American Legion. I think a couple physical athletes could certainly walk that in lieu of a couple of you individuals. So, to your point, yeah, they have, we'll be there.
Okay.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. That's why I want to make sure that their expectation matches yours, or in some way, shape, or form will be adjusted to match yours.
Yes, and I think, Brian, I think you and I had talked about a little about,
Yeah, I sent Kathy a variety of documents on organizing.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Ed, but
Okay.
we'll be there. We'll pull it off.
She did bring it up in our
Vehicles.
meeting, and then I told her it is,
That's right. Were you with us, Mike? And I apologize.
I wasn't in that, but I was part of our meeting. I told her after last meeting that I would assist in that also, and I think she was voluntold also, but,
Okay.
but she's aware of it, and she's seeking help, which she needs, and I think we'll pull it off okay.
Thank you, Councilman Culver,
Yeah.
for keeping us on our toes.
Oh, yeah,
And-
'cause-
Or Jack on his toes there.
And one of the things they did mention, and I guess Drew, you'd probably be the best expert to help chime in on this, is to make sure that the fire department is up front in case, God forbid, they get a call. Because if they're stuck in the middle of the parade, it's hard for them to get out.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough outs along the route that we can get through. It's traditionally not an issue, but I've never been involved in the planning of a parade, so I'm not actually sure where the optimal positioning of those units are.
No, Councilman Colvick's right. They made that, when we met with them, they said,
Okay.
really got to have that fireman up front, so.
Yes,
I guess you gotta be
traditionally,
up front, yeah.
yeah, Drew, I mean, literally, people are all over the street. Like, the side streets are blocked by people. Literally, there's
Which
no
is a
way
good
to
reason
get.
why we gotta
Yeah.
make an effort to really pull it off, because
Right.
it's a
a big deal for
long-standing
town,
thing, and
yeah.
we're running, our numbers are dwindling, and our members can't walk anymore, and we've always had it where they had a ride, and it's meaningful to them, and so whatever we have to do to get it done, we'll get it done.
So we spent time and and actually the village board is going to walk, because the Buffalo they used to ride in is no longer drivable or operable for them. So then Legion members brought up, well, Mr. Supervisor, what about throwing candy? I said, well, I'd love your thoughts. And they said, well, we'd rather not have candy. I said, so am I making that decision? And they said, well, yeah, we'd like you to. And I said, well, do you want public there? You know, you want these youth groups and stuff like that? Oh, yeah, we love it. We love to seeing, crowded sidewalks. I said, then you want candy.
Yeah.
I kind of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other board members have a committee they'd like to report on, or anything else? Yes.
Do you want me to go over the Parks and Rec?
Yes,
stuff,
if you would, please.
So I just wanted to go over briefly here. where we stand with that subcommittee that was started at the last meeting to put together the Victor Farmington Pickleball Association, along with the Fishers Hamlet community members that have come out both to speak about pickleball over the last 5 or so months. And certainly, Brian has both done a nice job with it, but also put in many, many hours of work into it. And we saw an opportunity to put people together and come up with a resolution that will hopefully put this in a position where we move forward without it being a manpower and intensive discussion and continuing to move along the same path we did. So with that, we met last Tuesday on the 5th. It would be Brian Emelson, Director of Parks and Rec, along with Councilman Dave Condon, Keith Shields representing the pickleballs, and Carol Fisher representing the Hamlet of Fishers. So we sat down and talked about some of the concerns, kind of the progression and the evolution of the developments of those courts and how it's changed the dynamics of those sessions down there over the last couple of years. So with that, the resolve that we came up with as a group that I present for you guys this evening would be as follows. Organized group play, meaning formal organized group play with the Pickleball Association that we currently see down there now, would be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 a.m. till noon. And then drop-in play would occur on Monday through Friday, so each day of the week, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. And then on the weekends, it would be drop-in play 8 a.m. to noon on Saturday and noon to 4 p.m. on Sunday. So in total, that allowed for 12 hours per week of organized group play, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to noon, and then 23 hours per week of drop-in play, Monday through Friday, 4 to 7, Saturday, 8 to noon, Sunday, noon to 4. There would be no fees as far as what we discussed for now, and that would be something that would be weighed over time based on how this worked. Obviously, one of the larger concerns that was identified was how well are we going to be able to keep this contained to those hours. So the gates, as right now, the gates would be locked during off hours, but certainly that presents some issues to work through for Brian and the rest of the Parks and Rec staff over there. I know personally I would like to avoid additional costs associated in manpower to accommodate that, but the reality is especially for those Saturdays and Sundays, it looks like that may cause a need for some additional manpower to come in and close and open those gates. So at this point, again, we did not discuss implementing any fees for organized play, but we did feel that this offered a healthy blend of both organized play and drop-in play, with an emphasis on drop-in play not being organized. And that was where I think the gray area really existed in what is organized versus drop-in. And Brian gave a very good example of if it's 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon and we drive down Wangham Road and we see portable nets up and we see 35 people on the courts, that would be organized play. If we drive by at 4:30 on the same day and there's a family with a couple of kids hitting tennis balls, there's 1 or 2 pickleball courts being used, that is consistent with drop-in play. And we asked Keith Shields, representing the Pickleball Association, we asked them to advocate both for pickleball. And I encouraged them. I said Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, at least in my opinion, we invested a capital investment into those courts. We have 400 people as part of that group that are utilizing those courts. And I kind of encouraged him to celebrate those Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. The pock, 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 and the cheering, that should be part of those 4 hours. Outside of those 4 hours, we also encouraged him equally to be an ambassador to the group and encourage them to seek opportunities elsewhere. If there's a large group that likes afternoons, seek opportunities in Farmington where they have a couple of courts. Mendon, Pittsford, and certain municipalities around us actually do have more courts than I had initially realized. So we encourage them to steer in those other directions outside of those Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to noon period. It sounds at this point, and Brian, certainly if you'd like to add any comments, it sounds like we had a very helpful meeting where we did see all points, and we did meet in some point in the middle. And the feedback I got, at least at the end of that meeting, by Ms. Fisher and Mr. Shields was that this seems like something we can work with. Brian?
Yeah, I just echo Drew's comments, and you may have said this, and so I apologize if I'm reiterating it, but also the courts would be there'd be a seasonal period use from May 1st to October 31st. So the 6 months out of the year, November through April, they'd be locked all day, year-round. And that's not only to address the concerns from the neighbors, it's also to preserve the integrity of the courts, to prevent people from shoveling off, to prevent people from skating on them, skiing on them. We got complaints about people out there in skis, and there's a little bit of back and forth, I think, in game playing a little bit with that, but nevertheless, that we want to provide opportunities. It's very challenging, it's a drop-in sport. And one of the things that we wanted to provide was opportunities not only for organized hours, but also just people that want to enjoy the park and play tennis or pickleball. But there are several other communities where they have options to do this. We talked about Sonnenberg Gardens in Canandaigua, Pinnacle Athletic, not only indoor, but they're also looking at potentially adding some outdoor courts. The town of Pittsford at Thornell Farm Park is looking at maybe putting in permanent courts to their tennis courts to accommodate pickleball play more permanently. Town of Farmington at Pumpkin Hook has courts, at Mertensia has courts. Now, most of these are tennis courts that are fashioned into pickleball courts like we did a couple years ago. But that the association, if you will, would be obligated to work with us in good faith to control the organized play and to spread it out into other communities and not just in the Fishers Park area. So other than that, we might look at putting a barrier gate up if it becomes necessary to deal with folks that are not working in cooperation with what we put forward. We'll see, and we agreed to meet as we go forward if we need to.
I think, Brian, with the courts opening May 1st, I think we're going to get a pretty good idea. At least I'd be almost certain we're going to get a very good idea of how this step one plan works, if that's what we decide to adopt. Probably very, very close into the end of May or midway through June. Certainly if it's not working, we're going to hear about it. And if it is working, then I don't anticipate we're going to hear a whole lot, which I hope that that's the case.
My apologies, May 1st to October?
October 31st.
Brian, on all of our other parks, we've never done like a formal resolution. What are you looking for, just support? It sounds like,
I think just to come back to the board and share information and agree to that we're going to monitor and manage this like we do with all of our facilities. All our facilities have different characteristics and have to be managed differently based on the usership. So we're just looking to keep this board informed, and we'll move forward. Our goal is to move forward with this process, and if it's not working, we'll continue to be open to working with both parties to meet everyone's needs.
So you're going to be sending something in writing, though, to Shields and Fisher?
Would you like me to do that?
That would be smart.
To put a memo
Yeah,
together?
I believe we're also, and Brian, I believe you're
Send
going
them
to,
a letter confirming, did Carol Fisher buy into this?
Yeah, they both, as evidenced with no one being here tonight, I think they agree to go forward. I did get a nice note.
Both Shields and
Yeah.
Fisher confirming, based upon their agreement, this is what's happening going forward.
and we will be doing signage as well, right, Brian, at
Yep,
the.
I'll have permanent signage up there.
Get it on the website right
The
away.
hours will be up on the website. Well, in the future brochures, it'll be in the brochures, and I'll work with the association, just like I work with Victor Soccer, Victor Lacrosse, boys, girls, football, to manage the use of our fields. It'd just be another facility that's not typically managed in an organized fashion, because, like I said, it's typically drop-in play. But given the magnitude of interest in this park and this facility, we feel it's in the best interest of the town to apply some management.
Probably just on the fact that the majority of the people are coming from out of town, Keith can probably get that word out, that there should be some signage when they arrive there, what
Yeah,
what
with the
drop-in
hours
is.
of
It's
play, the days of play,
Oh.
the seasonal use, the expectations. We have signage there now that's temporary, that they're closed,
So
but
they're going to be so used to have been just showing up that it's.
they're calling. I'm getting phone calls with the weather, as you can imagine, when,
And the
You know.
one
I
thing,
think that letter should also say what happens, what triggers you shutting it down. You know, if there is organized play during those hours, it's supposed to be.
You want
drop-in
to,
play.
Brian, draft something up? I know you're off next week. You have time to draft it, send it to myself and Frank here, and take a look, okay? And then we'll share with the board.
Yeah, I think it's just smart to put.
Yeah.
Everyone's on the same.
yeah.
So thank you for recommending that committee, Councilman Kuzumano, Councilman Condon, as well as Mr. Shields and Ms. Fisher.
Okay.
So moving forward, any plans for pickleball courts anywhere else in the town?
I think that we'll probably look at them at Paparone Park. I'm not sure if a lot of the other parks that we have are as suited for them. You need flat area. I mean, we have a lot of terrain with hilly terrain that we would have to probably move. But certainly you could look at it at Dryer, at some point, because it has the parking necessary. It's got lighting, it's got bathrooms, it's got a lot of the characteristics of what people would be looking for. But we also have parks, other than Mead Square, we have parks are neighborhood parks. I mean, we have Village on the Park, and we have Harlan Fisher Park and Dryer Road Park. There's houses around there, and so.
Well,
I
even
think-
Paparone Park too.
Yeah,
I mean,
so I think you're going to have that. I think that the challenge for us is it was a park that had seen more traditional use of the park over the decades.
Mhm.
And in response to, community need, and you have to, respond to community need, and that's what we did. The pickleball courts don't become permanent pickleball courts. They always start as tennis courts. And that's what drives the sport. And if you recall, the pickleball group wanted us to eliminate the tennis courts. And we kept one tennis court. So we're striving to have that balance.
I did get a text, just because he's watching intently, Councilman Condon did send a text that said that Keith has posted the new hours on the app with little negative feedback, so.
Yep.
It's already, that part of it's already done.
I was going to add that as well, and the one thing I was going to add related to that was, there was quite a bit of discussion on the app and whether they should eliminate that or continue to use that. And I think ultimately, I feel very comfortably that using that is a benefit for them. It helps to organize, and like you had mentioned, him and someone else that lives in a different community, that they've come together through that app. Those bonds will disconnect pretty quickly if they don't have a way to communicate. And the last thing I wanted to add was, we talked about membership of the group being Victor residents. About 70% are not Victor residents.
Right.
So to me, that's where the drop-in play became very important, because Victor taxpayers shouldn't be funding projects that are then utilized by a group only that has 70% non-membership. So the drop-in play really allows our community members to utilize those facilities. And Mr. Shields also had added that in a poll of their about 400 members, 85% of them are in the retiree section that likes to play in the morning. So that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to noon, according to him, works for 85% of his group. And we felt strongly that really accommodates the core of their group, and those folks that 15% it doesn't apply to. That's where we've really encouraged them to utilize those facilities in the adjacent municipalities.
Thank you, Councilman Guinan, for providing the text message from Councilman Condon
I do have
as
to
well.
say, on a side note, that I took a little survey of my own when I recently was in Florida, because I ran into some friends of mine that go down there, and they immediately join pickleball groups when they get to Florida for the time that they're down there. So we took notice of Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, even in some areas, they've taken the roofs of the parking garages, and they're playing pickleball. We noticed big groups on the roofs of the parking garages around Naples and Punta Gorda, and stopped and talked to some people, and they were all from, I bet you we ran into 25 people along the way that were from upstate New York that were playing down in those leagues down. So there's an explosion here. So what I'm trying to get to is, going
So a
forward, I
lot
know-
of attorneys and a lot of pickleball
know it's-
racket salesman making money down
A
there.
lot of old guys like me, you know?
Where the US Naples is where the US opens.
But going forward, we know it's a big thing.
Golf is the second most popular sport in Naples.
And I know it's not in your current budget, but going forward, I'd be interested in looking at putting something someplace and trying to defray a cost or do whatever, because we know it's a big thing, and I think we should move forward and
We
try.
show them at Paparone Park. There's dedicated courts in that plan.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we advocate, we ask that group to advocate and lobby, as they have here, with other towns, particularly in Farmington and towns that we work closely with to look at the potential for capital improvements to their facilities as well.
Did reach out also in another note, just to go on, because I talked to Dave Condon about it a little bit after the last couple meetings, and something, it's not a townwide thing, but we did ask Dan, I did have a meeting with Dan Breen, asked him if they were looking in the future of maybe, because they've got a lot of extra space, of possibly doing one there that would be more of a public setting, but, and have something for town residents and something different for out-of-town residents, or all the same or whatever, so that may be a possibility also.
Yeah, they're trying to hash out the location over there is what
Yeah.
Keith had shared, yeah.
His first comment to me was, what the something is this thing with pickleball? Because he must be getting a lot of hits from all over the place on it, and so they're lobbying for it there also, so.
I'm sure, yeah, and only Dan's way of doing
Yeah.
things. So, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
again, thank the entire committee. Okay, moving to resolutions. Resolution number 1 is amending the design and construction standards. I will tell you, there's a significant amount of MS4 changes here, there's 5 to 6 pages of sewer changes, many to match Farmington's. In addition, I know that our highway superintendent has put some points in there regarding asphalt, surface temperatures, and that the temperatures need to be rising when they put some of this asphalt down. So I think overall, some outstanding changes to this design and construction standards. Any questions on this? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 2, purchase a message board with trailer. Mark, is this a replacement of one that broke? Did we have? I think you're on now. Yep.
No, we're adding a second one, Jack. We're adding a second one to our inventory.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, board members? Hearing none, motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the award of bid for Raccoon Run, Deer Crossing Road improvements. And board members, I'm glad you're all sitting down, because not too long ago, we declined a sewer for Pump Station 11 that was like 85% over what was forecast for. This actually came under budget, which it's startling. I know our highway superintendent will be looking at that money when he gets fuel costs or asphalt costs down the road, but this came in $135,000 under what was forecast, so good news. Motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 4 is extending the existing professional traffic engineering services agreement with Clark Patterson Lee, 2-year extension.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, request for certificate of liability insurance waivers, and this is for that barn door. So this, like we do with some of our recreation, is just waiving the waiver of providing a certificate of liability insurance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 6 is the agreement for barn door events. And the fee is, if you have at least mine is not a dollar amount, the total of, well, it says $5,000 to be paid from the 2022 budget line. but some may extend, be carried over into 2023, because it is now a 12-month contract that'll take us into 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution is approved. Again, I want to make one comment regarding the hiring of this individual. This individual also, I mentioned it earlier in my conversation at the Lions Club. They are asking me about Honor Flight as well. Lions Club has been historically a big supporter of Honor Flight. I see down the road, maybe this individual is somebody that we could, if board so chooses, to expand and put Honor Flight under her fundraising opportunities as well. In addition, I know Victor Hiking Trails has this event on the 4th. The village is going to do an event, but I think there will probably only be one hang-around Victor Day, and maybe this is an individual down the road that village government would entertain a contract with her for that type of support. And again, that she wouldn't be the, she could be the individual that's driving it, but then looking for resources to pull something like that off. So just a couple of thoughts. Number 7, agreement with the Butterfly Kids Yoga. And again, this is the usual 70 to 30% percentage-wise.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 8, agreement with Jeffrey Smith, Legendary Mobile Laser Tag.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 9 is the purchase of stone and rental of stone slinger truck and operations for landscaping project, and this will be at the roundabout area on Route 96 here.
What are we doing there?
Yeah, so if you recall, when the roundabout was put in, the town had to sign an operating and maintenance and care agreement with the DOT to maintain the splitter island as well as the roundabout itself. And we took responsibility for that last October. We watched it for the first 8 months, and it's a very challenging area to work in from a safety standpoint. There's been several vehicular accidents in there, and I just don't feel comfortable having our staff in there weekly or bi-weekly pulling weeds in the mulch, which will happen. And so Jeff Rader from our park maintenance staff and I were trying to look at solutions to maintaining the shrub beds, beyond even putting flowers in there and having to be in there and water every day. We have an alternative plan to potentially move the village monument up to the side slope with hanging baskets and a bed in there on the grass on the small side slope. But if not, we would have staff in the middle of the roundabout. So we would like to be able to purchase stone and have a company come in and sling stone there, similar to what you have out here in the village. Smaller stone because in the parking lot, so we don't have to be out there weeding weekly, because you will get complaints and you will get phone calls. So we would like to put down fabric, put landscaping stone in there to make it more maintenance free.
In the roundabout you're talking?
In the actual, it's a raised, in the actual beds.
Right, inside
Of
the
the
roundabout.
splitter island.
Yeah.
There's a splitter island first.
That leads into it, right, from the
That, and
Farmington
then you
side.
have the actual roundabout itself. There's been, I mean, I've gone down there and I've looked at it and I've picked up car parts out of that island. There's been several. And it's doing its job. It's keeping traffic flowing. But we don't really have a really good, even staging this, I had a lot of questions and concerns with the slinger truck. And that's just the quickest way, and safest way for us to set up maintenance, protection of control of traffic on either side. And then
Yeah, it just makes sense, because even, it's not just the people in there, but to have people there, you're gonna have a vehicle there, and it's just, I've seen a lot of stuff there myself, so it only makes sense to do that, so.
we just met with the DOT out at the Four Corners because of some concerns I had with how that intersection was redone, and We have to go out there every day from Memorial Day through Labor Day to water every day, and we have to get a vehicle up on, and having done that myself several times, it's doable. This, I would think, I don't feel comfortable, and this is an alternative to it, to
Okay.
putting some fabric down on the mulch, because you will get plant material that'll come up, and the stone will keep that down, we feel.
We appreciate you thinking of the
sense.
safety of our employees. That new sign we
I
authorized,
can use that.
better use that when you get that slinger up there.
Yeah.
I could see that slinger getting hit by one of these.
He should be able to set up on the actual roundabout island where there's the stamped concrete. He should be able to set that up, and once he dumps his stone, we'll have hand raking in there, but it won't be something that we're gonna see. We watched the contractor out there, when the DOT, before the DOT released that to us. And it's a tough area, and I would certainly think if things aren't being maintained, we're gonna get phone calls on it.
Yeah. But
Well,
again,
just for members of the public, I mean.
yeah, to your point about safety though, I've seen where a large truck is literally driving over that stamped concrete to
Yep.
make the turn as they're going around. And so, yeah, anything from a safety perspective, and Mark obviously helped him out that.
The Splitter Island
Yeah.
is an issue. The Splitter Island, there's been multiple motor vehicle accidents in there.
I think it's wonderful, Brian, we talk about safety first, and I think that having that at the foresight is tremendously important. From the emergency services side, I obviously see that, the 96 southbound that enters in at an acute angle to it, there's almost no slow needed in order to make that angle. So the concern I have is somebody's come down the hill that's swinging around to go 96 southbound. If you're not anticipating that coming off East Main Street, you cause a ricochet that puts one vehicle into the median. So to have that stoned, and to not have our folks out there on a routine basis would be absolutely ideal.
So,
Yep.
in essence,
That makes sense.
I was just saying, make it a raised concrete barrier. Well, DOT, their design was faulty. It's causing accidents. Have them put, if you go down to the city, Long Island, Westchester, they don't have medians like a 2-foot concrete.
Jersey wall.
Jersey barrier, yeah.
It's like, so that you can really slow down, otherwise
Then they got a tow truck
they
there.
can hit it.
They got a tow truck right in there.
That's what they do downstate.
Can I follow up to your question about the Four Corners? What's going on with that?
So the DOTs in the county, transportation departments, there was funding to make curb cuts and crosswalks become more ADA accessible and have countdown timers at all of them. They're all over. I mean, even places where you don't have sidewalks.
Right.
But it is their new design standard to have that on all corners. So I found out about it after we planted the flowers, when I saw that they pulled the pavers.
Yeah.
So they put in some new countdown timers for the crosswalks that
Right.
are out there. And they took out stamped concrete. We asked them, it's more of a maintenance issue. They took out the pavers, and they're gonna they poured it. They have some more pouring to do. Their contractors run behind. So we had a field meeting about 3 weeks ago, and so that's what they did. They added those additional pedestal with the electronic timers.
Yeah, because it's been quite a while it's been tore up.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
started like right in June, right after we planted those beds. They came in and did that, and so,
Okay.
but it's happened all over Monroe County, Wayne County, so,
Thank you.
yep.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 10 is to amend the fee schedules. We did determine, I think we were probably one of the few townships that didn't have a fee for these highway permits, so we are not going to miss that opportunity.
What are these? Because I'm confused about the highway work permit.
So it's anytime anyone asks for like a driveway, to install a driveway, or a developer, when they come in to do utilities, Monroe County Water Authority, Frontier, Spectrum, any of those type of utilities that be coming in to work within the highway right away, they have to fill out this permit.
Okay, so it's the right of way primarily.
Correct.
Okay.
So there'll be a fee with it now, and there's more dialogue in the permit too for a follow-up to make sure it's finished off properly when they get done with the project.
Covers a portion of Mark's administrative
Good.
costs and time, so.
That's good.
Any other comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment, again, an opportunity for the members of the public to address the town board. Susan,
Supervisor-
no one? Okay. Motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
We have it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Framework pilot agreement?